SNK's been around forever, and it seems like, for the most part, their IPs are more irrelevant than ever, maybe with the exception of the King of Fighters franchise. Um, I think this past year they came out with a brand new Fatal Fury game after, I guess, that particular series being pretty much defunct since the 90s, and it underperformed in terms of sales. Now, when the trailers came out and you saw the graphics and the gameplay and the characters and stuff like that, it looked promising. We even got a couple of guest characters from Street Fighter, and yeah, despite that, it underperformed. I don't think it even did 1 mil in terms of sales. And hell, I don't think King of Fighters 15 from 2022 even did like 1 mil in sales. At least, I haven't heard of that. But at the same time, it's one of their more popular video games that we've seen in recent years. And the crazy thing is, you look at like the Metal Slug series, which has been around for like 30 years now. I feel like it's one of those IPs that's been around forever and it's never achieved like any type of mainstream success. And the closest it's come to that was like the late 90s and like maybe early 2000s, like with the first 3 or 4 Metal Slug games. They recently re released Metal Slug Attack Reloaded, which is like a remake of one of the original Metal Slug games. But but yeah, that is something that hardly anyone talks about. It was kind of like a blip on the radar in terms of video games that came out in the past couple of years. But yeah, I honestly feel like SNK for the most part, um, they haven't been truly relevant in a very long time. I feel like SNK for the most part appeals more to hardcore like gamers who are fans of the fighting genre opposed to casuals. And and I don't know. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what their end game is, but I know for a fact that SNK as a company has had like financial woes like um over the past like couple of decades or whatever. In fact, I believe they had like a bankruptcy back in 2001 if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, just like they've had like failed ventures and failed game systems that came out back in the 90s. And I remember like some of them like the Neo Geo and the Neo Geo Pocket and stuff like that. I remember like the original Neo Geo game system looked amazing. It was ahead of its time when it came out back in the early 90s, but it was overpriced. No one could afford it. Never got really popular in America. And I don't know, by the time like, Neo Geo Pocket came out, people were looking more at like PlayStation and N64 and stuff like that. So, yeah, in terms of like the console wars, I honestly feel like, the Neo Geo is something that got overlooked. I mean, I didn't even know what the Neo Geo was back when I was like younger, back in the 90s. But yeah, it just seems like SNK has always kind of just been in the background in relation to, I guess, gaming or the console wars or what have you. And I feel like it's one of those things where I guess like SNK will probably do something cool every once in a while and it'll it'll get a little bit of it'll get a little bit of like attention on social media, then it'll just be quickly forgotten. Um I read somewhere that they're supposed to be releasing a new Art of Fighting game sometime in the future, but if Fatal Fury, didn't do well in terms of sales and it wasn't a commercial success, I doubt, Art of Fighting is going to be any different because in terms of popularity, Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting were pretty much on the same level back in the day. And I still feel like Fatal Fury was slightly popular than Art of Fighting, but yeah, I just feel like, people aren't really talking about SNK anymore, but there is one thing about SNK that I appreciate is that when they create video games, they look and they actually feel like video games. And I feel like for the most part, it's kind of a lost art in the gaming world nowadays because a lot of big corporations are all about, microtransactions and AI slop and, giving you the bare minimum and trying to get as much out of you as they can profit wise. And I honestly feel like that's something that's definitely killing the gaming industry. And I guess SNK, existing is something that I don't know. I feel like it's good for gaming, but at the same time, I don't feel like SNK is ever going to truly become. Um, it's not going to have the same level of mainstream success as Capcom's IPs have had. You look at, King of Fighters and how long it's been around. A lot of people will go on record and tell you that King of Fighters 98 was probably the best installment in the entire franchise, but that's something that's subjective. Um, I honestly feel like I don't know. I still feel like, there are some characters within the King of Fighters franchise that has like mainstream appeal, like Mai Shiranui, Terry Bogard. Um, you got Kyo, you got like all kinds of characters that like there are people who are familiar with these type of names, but at the same time, I don't know. I just feel like King of Fighters is not on the same level in terms of popularity as, Tekken or Mortal Kombat or anything like that. And I don't think that's something that's going to necessarily change anytime in the near future. But there are a lot of people who are happy that, that particular IP still exists. And I wouldn't be shocked if SNK try to do more with Fatal Fury in the future. But because like I honestly feel like Metal Slug, obviously, it's way past its prime, and right now um we're just getting more and more installments or rehashes of older games that a lot of people really don't care about or they fall under the radar. And and I honestly feel like Metal Slug is one of those IPs that have suffered over the years, mainly because the gaming industry has evolved so much and people are more into 3D shooters opposed to 2D run and gun, side scrolling shooters. And and yeah, for the most part, seems like a lot of the stuff that SNK put out in terms of just like gameplay is just it just feels outdated. It's been done before, it's been done to death to a point where when you see a new game, it's kind of like the same thing but different because you've seen it before in another game. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I don't know. I feel like for the most part, in terms of as far as casuals are concerned, I don't think like people really acknowledge SNK as much as they should. Hardcore gamers, still love SNK, but at the same time, I don't necessarily I don't necessarily see any of their IPs, becoming more popular than they have already been within the past couple of years.